Good morning, friends. Today we are going to start a lecture on gravitation. Yes, the chapter number 10. But before we move on to gravitation, let us recall a little bit of motion. We saw what motion is, how bodies move, and the equations of motion. I hope you do remember the equations of motion. Do you? The equations of motion are V equal to U plus AT, where V is the final velocity, U is the initial velocity, A is the acceleration and T is the time. Displacement S equal to ut plus half at square, and the third equation we have v square minus u square equal to 2as. So these are the three equations of motion we did in chapter number 8, motion. And then we did chapter number 9. In the chapter number 9 we saw that motion has got a cause. What is the cause of motion? The cause of motion is force. So we have seen that force causes motion, right? And after that we saw Newton's laws of motion. These are, remember, these are equations of motion. And in the lesson 4 we did Newton's law of motion, in which we saw the formula F equal to ma, and also did the law of conservation of momentum, that is m1 u1 plus m2 u2 equal to m1 v1 plus m2 v2, means the total momentum of the system before and after the collision remains constant. Now, since we have understood motion and force, we are going to learn in this chapter a new type of force called the gravitational force. We will look into the history of the gravitational force and how Newton was able to give the universal law of gravitation. But before we move to that part, let us see some observations. Okay, so here we have just revised. We have learned about the motion of objects, equations of motion, and saw that force causes motion. We also know a force is needed to change the speed or the direction of the motion of an object. Okay, so whenever you drop an object, the object always falls towards the earth. Now because the motion of the object is towards the earth, there must be some force acting which bring it towards the earth, right? And also think about the planets which go around the sun. Today we know from observation, and today we know scientifically by the telescope and all the data we have, that planets go around the sun. Now see this, planets go around the sun. The moon doesn't go around the sun. The moon goes around the earth. So we have to see what causes this special type of motion. A question will arise here, why the moon doesn't go around the sun? Why the moon goes around the earth? Jupiter has got 12 moons. Why those moons go around Jupiter? While the asteroids between Mars and Jupiter, they go around the sun. So there is motion in the universe, and just now we are only going to look to our solar system. Okay. Now to understand how force is needed to change the speed and direction of the motion, yes, we have to understand how force is needed. Now planetary motion is slightly difficult, so we start with a very simple example. In this diagram you can see a boy has got a thread. At the end of the thread he has tied a stone. Now how is this boy playing? He is whirling the stone round and round. So as you observe in the diagram, the boy is playing with the stone. Now the stone, if you see the direction, sometimes the stone is flying like this, but then the stone will reach here, it goes like this. The stone here, the stone is going around the boy. Now when can something go around? An object will travel in a straight line. When it is going round, means it is changing the direction again and again. So in this diagram you can observe the stone is changing direction each and every time. So because the stone is changing the direction means some force is acting on the stone. Which is the force acting on the stone which is making it change its direction? So we can see there is a string here. The child is holding the string. If the string was not there, the stone would have gone in the straight direction, but this string makes the stone change the direction every now and then, at every second. So if the thread was released, before the thread is released, the stone is moving in a circular path with a speed, but the direction is changing at every point. Okay? Now because there is a change in the direction, even if the speed is same, when the direction changes, we say there is a change in velocity. Okay? Now change in velocity will lead to acceleration, because what is acceleration? It is rate of change of velocity, and acceleration can only come when there is a force, because you learned the formula F equal to ma. The acceleration can only come because of a force. So what you can see here, this boy is playing with the stone is going round and round, but even if the speed remains the same, the direction of the stone is constantly changing. Because the direction is changing, we can say the velocity is changing. And when the velocity is changing means it is an accelerated motion. So accelerated motion is always caused by a force. So we can see this is the string. The string here is causing some type of force and making the body move in a circular path towards the center. So what you can see, the stone should go straight. If it is here, it should go straight. If it should go here, it should go straight. But it doesn't go straight. The stone is always pulled towards the center. The stone is always pulled towards the center. So there is a force which is keeping the stone towards the center. Always pulling the stone towards the center. So this force which keeps the force towards the center is called centripetal or center seeking force. Means the force is always towards the center. Okay? So the stone does not go out but goes round and round because of a force called the centripetal force. So what is the centripetal force? It is the force keeping the stone towards the center, and it is caused because of the string. Because of the string. But now a second question arises. What is the second question? In the book it is not mentioned, but you need to see. If the string is pulling the stone towards the center, then why is the stone not coming inside and inside and inside towards the center? Why is the stone not coming towards the center? If the thread is pulling the stone towards the center, the stone should come inside, or it should come like this towards the center, but the stone is not coming to the center. Why? Means we have learned that the motion remains because of balance forces. Now if the displacement, if the distance from the center remains the same, there has to be some other force acting. So thread is acting towards the center, there is another force acting on the outward. This force balances the centripetal force. The name of the force is centrifugal force. Centrifugal means away from the center. If centripetal means towards the center, centrifugal means away from the center. But then one more question arises. We have known there is a string here which causes the centripetal force. But there is nothing here causing the centrifugal force. So remember, the centrifugal force is called a pseudo force. A pseudo force means not a true force. But why are we talking about it here? Because the centripetal force and the centrifugal force balance each other. Centripetal tries to bring the body towards the center. Centripetal tries to bring the body towards the center. So centripetal brings it towards the center. So centripetal force is bringing the stone towards the center, but the stone doesn't come towards the center because a centrifugal force is balancing outside. So the stone here neither comes towards the center, though it is pulled towards the center, it does not come towards the center because the force is balancing. So the stone always remains at a fixed distance from this point. So that is the basic kind of idea we can see, that when the planets go around the sun, something like this. Imagine the boy is the sun and the stone is the planet, and the planet is going around the sun. Though we cannot see any string between the sun and the earth, we can consider there is something there which is causing this force. And the same goes for the moon and the earth. When you take the boy as the earth and the stone as the moon is going around the earth. So this motion which we can see is making the object go round and round, and that is the object we have observed in the planetary motions. Now, a little back of historical data. Why are we studying planetary motions? So people just out of interest they studied planetary motion. Very ancient civilizations like Egypt, Sumeria, Mesopotamia, China, India, all these ancient civilizations have always been interested in the motion of the planets. Remember, throughout the centuries, throughout millennia, all the ancient civilizations, if you look at the old carvings on the walls in the caves, there are even 12,000 to 13,000 year old paintings of these celestial objects. So, motion of planets has always been of great interest. Though they may have not studied the cause of the motion, they were always interested for two reasons: religious and economic purposes. Okay? And today in India also, just now there is the wedding season. Why it is the wedding season? Because it is said it is a very auspicious season. What makes it auspicious? What makes it auspicious is the motion of the planets. So the motion of the planets have been studied for religious and economic purposes. How economic purposes? When the people went out to trade, okay, when they took boats into the sea, when they knew the motion of the planets, they could judge the direction of the winds and go for trade. So motion of the planets have been learned for a very long time for religious and economic purposes. Okay, but by the 16th century there was a invention of the telescope, and because of the telescope a lot of data on the motion of planets had been collected by many astronomers. So before the telescope also, man had learned to observe and keep a note of the motion of the planets and the stars. And after the invention of the telescope, many astronomers made data. They collected a lot of data. There are two names which come to mind. One name is not mentioned here is Tycho Brahe. Tycho, Tycho, Brahe. Tycho Brahe. He was an astronomer, and his assistant Johannes Kepler. So Tycho Brahe is the real person. Johannes Kepler was his assistant. But in their observatory, they kept a track, a data of all the motion of all the planets. And when they compiled the data, now Tycho Brahe died before he could do anything. He died before he could do anything. But his assistant Johannes Kepler, when he studied the data, he gave 3 laws. Now this is not a part of your syllabus, but to understand the gravitational force, you need to understand these 3 laws, which you will study in detail in the 11th standard. But for short, I'll tell you what are the 3 laws. The first law is stating that the orbit of a planet is an ellipse. Now you saw the child was playing with the stone, it was in a circle, but the motion of the planet is not a circle, it is an ellipse. Now what is the difference between a circle and an ellipse? In a circle, there is one center, and the distance from the center is always fixed. A circle is a perfect shape, and ellipse is slightly like this. It has got 2 central points here, and the rule is whenever you add these points, the sum of these 2 points will always remain the same. So any point on the ellipse, when you connect from center 1 and center 2. So from the motion, Kepler said the orbit of the planet is an ellipse, and I told you the ellipse has got 2 centers, 2 foci. So he said sun lies at one of the foci. So this is the sun. O is the sun. You can see when the planet D is at position T, it is nearer to the sun. When it is at B, it is far away from the sun. So any planet will go far away from the sun. Here it is near to the sun. So any planet will go far from the sun, come back near to the sun, go again far from the sun, come back near to the sun. So planets do not go in circular motion around the sun, they go in elliptical orbits, in which the sun is at one of the foci. That is law number 1. The law number 2 he gave is that the planet sweep equal areas in equal intervals of time. Okay? So you can see here the area between COD, sector COD. This area and this area, he said, will remain the same. How can these two remain the same? Second law states that the planet will sweep equal areas in equal intervals of time. Means when it goes from C to D, the area it sweeps is the same when it goes from A to B. When it goes A to B and when it goes C to D, the area is the same in the same intervals of time. Means in the same time, same area. How is this possible? So nature has made an arrangement for that. When the planet comes near the sun, the velocity increases. You can see the radius is decreasing, but the time is also decreasing. So this is the area, it travels faster here. And here it is traveling slower, but in a fixed interval of time. Say 1 hour, 1 day, 2 days, 1 month, the planet will always cover the same area. And the third law which was given is the cube of the mean distance. Why is mean distance mentioned here? You can see here A1 R2, R1 is A, R2 is B, R2 is greater than R1. This is smaller and this is still smaller. The radius is changing, but you have to take the mean, the average. Add all the radius and divide by the number of radius you have added. Find the average. So the mean distance of a planet from the sun is proportional to the square of the orbital period. So the mean distance, mean radius, what is the orbital period? Suppose the planet starts from D and it takes 1 revolution around the sun. The time taken for 1 revolution is called the orbital period T. It said the average radius cube of the distance upon square of the orbital period. When you divide the two, it always remains a constant. For each and every planet, this remains the same. So this data was known to us because of lot of information collected by Tycho Brahe and Johannes Kepler. So the laws were known during the time of Newton. Now we see how Newton comes into the picture. Newton was to find out that we know the planet of the motion of the planet. Newton said now we exactly know how the planets move around the sun. We know now how the moon goes around the earth. But what causes this motion? What is the cause behind the motion? Is it all a different cause or is it the same cause? So Newton is now asking the question, the moons are going around the planets are going around the sun. But is the cause of the motion the same for everyone or is it different? So now these questions are bugging Newton. So we see the motion of the moon around the earth is because of centripetal force. So that is the force of attraction by the earth. So the moon goes around the earth. If there was no such force, the moon would go straight line motion and not around the earth. Then Newton saw the apple falling towards the earth. Now the question came in Newton's mind. The force the earth has on the moon and the force the earth has on the apple. Are the two forces the same or are they different? This is the question Newton asked. The moon is going around the earth because of a force. The apple is falling towards the earth because of a force. Is the force the same force or are the forces different? So, third law, what is the third law? Every action has equal and opposite reaction. Means, when the earth attracts the apple with a force say AB, then the apple also attracts the earth with a force BA in the opposite direction. Means, the force the earth has on the apple is equal to the force the apple has on the earth. But because the apple is very small in size and the earth is very big, the apple will move towards the earth and the earth will not move towards the apple. Okay? Then the second law of motion says acceleration is inversely proportional to the mass of the object. Means F equal to ma will mean A equal to F upon m. The acceleration is inversely proportional to the mass. Means if the mass will increase, acceleration will decrease. And if the mass will decrease, acceleration will increase. So second law says acceleration is inversely proportional to the mass of the object. So, because the mass of the apple is negligible, the earth will not move towards the apple move towards the earth. And from this observation, Newton gave a famous statement. All objects in the universe, all the objects, the pen lying near you, the mobile you are holding in your hand, the PC in which you are seeing the lecture, all these objects will attract each other. Every object in the universe will attract each other, and this force of attraction between the objects is called the gravitational force. Now if you look your table around you and two pens are lying on the table, so those two pens also have a gravitational force towards each other. But then you will ask the question, if there is gravitational force between the object, why don't they move towards each other? So now we have to try to answer the question, why they don't move towards each other. So first we consider universal law of gravitation, Newton's universal law. So what is shown here? They shown a body A, okay, but the body A is big. Let us say it has got a mass capital M. Now for theory what we assume, we have to imagine the body is not big, the body is very small, but it has got the same mass M. A small body has got the same mass, and we have got another body B having a small mass M. But you have to consider here that all the mass is concentrated at the center here, at B. So what do we have now? We have got a small point A where the whole mass is concentrated, a small point B where the whole mass is concentrated, and D is the distance between the 2 points, is D. So now we can see that any two bodies will have mass. Yes? Any body will have a mass, and there will be some distance between the center of the body. We will call it D. There are three things here: mass of two bodies and the distance between them. So now let us see the universal law of gravitation. Every object in the universe attracts every other object with a force. Means these two bodies will attract each other with a force. The force is proportional to the product of their masses, and inversely proportional to the square of the distance between them. And where is this force acting? The force is along the line joining the center of the two bodies. Means body B will act on body A towards the center on this side, and body A will act on body B on this side. The arrows are shown here. And according to Newton's third law, this force will be equal but opposite. So the Newton's third law of motion will now lead us to the universal law of gravitation. So like I said, let us say we have a body A of mass m, a body B of mass small m, and d is the distance between them. Now they both attract each other by a gravitational force or by a force called F. Now, according to universal law, the force is proportional to product of their masses, means F is proportional to product of their masses, m into n. So if the mass is more, the force will be more. What does product of the masses mean? If the mass is more, the force will be more. But it is inversely proportional to the square of the distance between them. Inversely proportional to square of the distance between them. That is, if the d is increasing more, f will be less. If d is more, f will be less. And if d is less, f will be more. So inversely. Now combine this 1 and 2, you will get f is proportional to m into n upon d square, and for the proportionality we will put f equal to g m into m upon d square. Now this g is called the constant of proportionality or universal gravitation constant. Why it is called universal gravitation constant? Because when you calculate the force between Sun and Earth, or Earth and Moon, or Sun and Jupiter, this G will remain constant throughout the whole universe. This G will never change. And the value of G was found out by Henry Cavendish. You can read the experiment in the 11th standard using a sensitive balance, but the accepted value of G is 6.673 into 10 raised to minus 11, means it's a very small value. The value is 6.673 upon 10 raised to minus 11 means 1 and 11 zeros after it. This is the value of G. So it's a very small value. That is why gravitational force is not a very strong force. Now we'll see a numerical. We have got mass of the earth equal to 6. Sorry, this is written wrongly here. This is not 6, it is 24. So it is 6 into 10 raised to 24 kg. And mass of the moon is 7.4 into 10 raised to 22 kg. Now you will think this is 24 and this is 22, a small difference, right? But it is a difference of 10 to the power 2 means 100. So you can say that more or less the mass of the earth is 100 times the mass of the moon. The difference of 10 raised to 2 is 100, means the mass of the earth is almost 100 times the mass of the moon. The distance between the earth and the moon is 3.84 yes into 10 raised to 5 kilometer. So we'll convert that into meter. So we'll have to do it 3.84 into 10 raised to 5 into 1000, means 10 raised to 3 meter. Why? Because you have to use the SI unit. Mass you have to use kg, distance you have to use meter. Okay? So now, what is the formula for force? F equal to G into M upon D square. So what is the value of G? 6.67 into 10 raised to minus 11 into 6 into 10 raised to 24 into 7.4 into 10 raised to 22 upon 3.84 into 10 raised to 8. How 10 raised to 8? 5 plus 3, 8 into 3.84 into 10 raised to 8, because it is square, so we will take 2 times. Now 24 plus 22 is 46. 46 minus 11 is 35. 35 minus 8. 35 minus 8 is 27, and 27 minus 8 is 90. So we get 10 raised to the power 19. Okay, and this number here we'll have to do 6.67 into 6 into 7.4 divided by 3.84 into 3.84. So this is the division you will have to do on your own. So it comes up to nearly 20.1. which you can write as 2.01 into 10 raised to 20 Newton. Why Newton? Because the unit of force is Newton. And now we'll see the importance of the universal law of gravitation. So the law of gravitation explained many things which we thought were unconnected. The gravitational force binds us to the earth. So we do not leave the earth and float in space. All the things remain on the earth because of this force. It explains the motion of the moon around the earth. It explains the motion of the planets around the sun. And it also explains the tides due to the moon and the sun. So if you go to seashores, you'll observe on no moon days and full moon days there is high tide because the gravitational force is affected by the position of the moon and the sun. And that is how we got the theory that if the motion of the position of the moon and the sun affects the tide, then the position of the moon and the sun should also affect human and all the planets. The gravitational force of all the planets should have an effect on the life of the people on earth. That is why we have got auspicious timings. Now one very important thing is going to occur on 21st of December. Remember this date, 21st of December. On 21st of December, Saturn and Jupiter are going to be very close, like they are once in 800 years. So if possible, do not miss this opportunity to observe the sky and see the position of Saturn and Jupiter. They are going to come near to each other, yes, once in 800 years. So I'm going to end this lecture here. Thank you.